The moment I realized my life was out of control is still so clear to me. I remember the exact moment that I realized that I was drowning in my life. Not only was I drowning in my life romantically, I was drowning in my life professionally. I was caught between the need for certain things to be true that I knew were not true, and accepting the reality of the truth. You know, I think as human beings, we do our best to be as positive as we can, and I think sometimes positivity comes with some delusional thoughts. I tried to make chaotic situations palatable. I tried to rationalize chaotic living as normal. And once I figured out that, or got past the delusion that I had made, I was at a point to where, you know, while I didn't have the answers, I was beginning to ask all the right questions. And the biggest question was, as selfish as this sounds, what was in it for me? I got to the point to where I began setting boundaries, and I started saying no to certain people in my life. And I began saying no to a lifestyle of instability. And as an artist, the thing is you accept that there's going to be an amount of instability that comes with the territory and the profession of being an artist. But you also still have a choice to make. And professionally, I wasn't happy. My health had faltered. People made demands of me that were made with little consideration to the life that I was wrapped up in. And, you know, while it wasn't on purpose, you know, what you come through so much for people that the assumption is this is just how it is. Most people don't entertain the idea that a strong human being can suddenly become weak. And there I was. I was floundering. I wasn't doing quality work for clients. I wasn't in the game, so to speak. I was in a state of dog paddling and barely making it. I had to ask myself, what is it that I wanted? And am I doing those things that I need to in order to get what I want? You know, I discovered that if you want things in life, you can't do, or you can't do things that are counterproductive to your goal. And I was doing that. I now had a need for stability, and I was in an unstable situation career-wise. I needed some predictability. And I had created a life that supported everything but predictability. And romantically, I had forged a situation to where there were no boundaries. And ultimately, that led to chaos and disrespect. It led to an imbalance. And by giving into what society deems as normal, you know, the idea that love is pain, which I think is one of the stupidest sayings ever created. When I disconnected from that thought, that was the very moment that my life changed. I think naturally as men we compartmentalize, but we don't understand the beauty and the value of it. When you compartmentalize, everything is in its right place. And everything is in its right place for you. There's a big difference between right and correct. The correct thing to do might be to suffer with a person. The right thing to do, and right and wrong is subjective. The right thing to do, for me, was to do a hard reset. And when you do these hard resets in life, you come to the acceptance that you may lose people that you love. And sometimes the people that you love are extraordinarily toxic. And we rationalize their toxicity as being a byproduct of what we've done to them. We try to place blame sometimes as well. We place blame to exonerate ourselves from our roles in certain situations. I allowed myself to become toxic. I didn't arrive toxic, and I had forgotten the person that I was prior to. Well, after being exposed to so much toxicity and becoming a part of that toxicity, I also figured out I could no longer go back to the man that I was prior to. And I tried to recreate that man before he came in contact with that toxicity. That's impossible. What you can do is you can create a human being that is necessary for that moment. Now, while I lost the ability to view the world the same, I became a cynic after a while. And then after my cynicism, once I figured out what was internally happening to me, I let the cynicism go, and I became a realist. And sometimes it's easy to get realist and cynical. Real and cynical can be confused. You get them confused because they're very closely related. Only one is the exaggeration of true clarity. Cynics believe nothing good can happen. And a realist understands that good things happen, but they generally aren't the norm. And you accept those good things. You enjoy those good things, but they're in their proper place. When I receive acts of kindness from a person, I place it within a box. When I receive negativity from a person, I place it in a box. When I receive a challenge, I place it in a box. And I don't allow any of those boxes to override the reality and the existence of the others. And the only thing I can say as far as drawbacks is that the endorphins that you feel from things that are good are a little bit like red wine. Too much, you have a hangover. Because once you smash into that wall of reality, to where those good things are taken for granted and they're expected, once you hit that wall of reality, that isn't the norm, you sometimes find yourself getting mad and asking, well, God, why did you let that happen? And you failed to look at everything good that had happened up until that point. And the only time that happens is when you forget where the good is compartmentalized and should be kept and should be remembered, and it should be savored. It keeps you from thinking that your life is an utter disaster. It's amazing how we remember the bad days over the good days. I think that's natural for most people. Compartmentalization also keeps you from living in a fantasy. When you, as I talked about female love being different than male love from the last podcast, sometimes it's very easy to romanticize a moment as the way it is. You have dinner with a woman, you kiss her, and you slip up and allow yourself to feel something that isn't necessarily real in the way that you want it to be real. And then when you're let down, you feel betrayed. By compartmentalizing and remembering what was put in that box, you never forget what you're in possession of. My job is a job that isn't something that I set out to do. During the days, I do my artwork. I create. I do all of that. But in order to have the stability that I talked about at the beginning of this piece, could not be obtained through the career, quote unquote, that I had. So I got a job, and that job is so far removed from what I had been accustomed to. It was not a creative job, but it provided certain things. It provided health insurance. It provided a retirement plan. It provided an additional insurance, if need be, for my daughter. It served a purpose. That right there is a primary example of the benefits of compartmentalization, so that you can see past the facade of being a failure. There's a lot of people that are like, yeah, you're an artist, but you have a day job, so you're not a successful artist. If I didn't have the ability to rationalize and compartmentalize and put things in their proper place, then I might too agree with them. I might be inclined to agree with them. But when I'm able to look at it for what it is, which is exactly what I do now, it gives me the ability to see that I'm hitting all of my points that I need to, that I set out to hit, and I haven't failed. I'm still doing art, but now I have health insurance. Now I have a predictable check when my clients decide and they get a wild hair up their ass and don't want to pay. After I've put in a 40-hour work week, with art I might get paid. I needed a sure thing so that I could continue to do my art. That's the beauty and value of compartmentalization. And, on the spectrum of love, there are certain things that I need. And I say love as a placeholder. It's more complicated, but at the same time more simple than that. When you put things into perspective and you put them in their proper box, you're able to see what kind of love you're getting. And for the most part, it's a pretty superficial love. It's a very generic love. And it's placed within a proper context. And, there comes a day when some of these things just are no longer needed. I don't know if that's going to be the case with me, but love and interaction with a special person is put into a box without expectation, with the understanding that these things can be removed from me because they require the participation of two people. The power that I keep is knowing that at any moment, things with this person could change. And while I enjoy being with the person in that intimacy, I understand the only thing I'm in control of is regulating my feelings and my perspective so that I can still survive and thrive should that union come to an end. I put my romantic life into a box that happens on a certain day. And I don't ask a lot of questions as to what's happening on the other days because people tend to lie. They tend to not tell the truth and they tend to do things for their own benefit. It's of no use to ask a person. Because they're busy. And I really find this with women. They're busy considering themselves. There isn't any reason to ask whether she's faithful. She need only be faithful to the day designated for her. But act accordingly. We live in dangerous times. There's diseases out there. Ask what's only ask what's relevant, and beyond that, everything else is dangerous. Since compartmentalizing my life, there's a degree of spontaneity that's been lost, but so much has been gained. I do things at a certain time, and whether I'm done or not, I close up shop as to not bleed over into some of the other areas of my life that are within their own box. Sleep, rest, an emotional and psychological reboot. All of these things are done at a particular time during the day, which maximizes my use of that 24 hours. And it keeps me from feeling like I haven't accomplished anything. When I get away from that type of living, I feel sick. I feel horrible. And sometimes you get out of your routine and your compartmentalized life for people, and they don't do the same for you. I would tell you not to. I would tell you to be selfish. I would tell you to compartmentalize the amount of time and energy you're going to put into helping other people. Because for the most part, when you make yourself available constantly, you will be used constantly. Decide your level of commitment to a person. If they can live with it, that's fine. If they can't, that's fine too. But define your parameters. Do that with everything. And you normally will have the answers to the questions that you ask yourself. I'd like to know what you think about the compartmentalization of a life. And I'd like to hear your thoughts from a career standpoint, from a romantic standpoint, just from a lifestyle standpoint. Hit that like button and subscribe. And until the next time, take care.